Hello, welcome to this candidate forum sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Marin County. I'm Linda Deere. Our timekeeper is Pamela Gotch. There are 5 candidates running for 3 seats on the Mill Valley City Council. Each seat has a 4-year term. The candidates are Kenneth Brooks, Kirk Nauer, Sashi McEntee, Stephanie Moulton Peters, Jim Wickham. Each candidate has been invited to give a 1.5-minute opening statement. We'll begin in alphabetical order with Kenneth Brooks.
Thank you. My name is Kenneth Brooks, and it's a privilege to be here today running for City Council of Mill Valley. I like to divide my commitment to the community into 2 stages. The first one in 1989, when I moved here with my family and was fortunate enough to own and operate a retail store downtown Mill Valley. And that's how I got to meet lots of you, learned about the workings of the community, was active in the downtown business community at that point, and got to really understand how things work from the kind of the consumer side of things, if you will. Later on, the other half of my community commitment came kind of in around 2008, and it was around the time when there was a financial crisis in town. There was many empty stores in town. I was no longer the retail store owner. I did participate I audited the business task force and helped the merchants try to coalesce. And I was fortunate enough to be picked to be a member of the general plan. This is a copy of the general plan. It's often referred to as our Constitution. I prefer to call it a blueprint. And it was created by 40 other citizens. And in it is an amazing body of work about things that we could do for our town. And I recommend each of you pick an area of interest and volunteer in that area and help us on the council make the city a better, more hospitable place to live. Thank you.
Kirk.
Thank you. My name is Kirk Nauer. My family and I moved to Mill Valley in 1998, about 17 years ago. Sylvia and I have 3 children who all went to public schools in Mill Valley, starting at Park, Mill Valley Middle School, and TAM. As candidate and as your council member, my greatest motivation is to serve our city, our community, and strive for excellence in governance. My strong government, business, and nonprofit experience will serve our city and our council well. I'm in my 2nd term and current chair of Mill Valley's Parks and Recreation Commission. I've also served on several city committees advancing positive infrastructure and change, including Mill Valley's largest infrastructure project, the redevelopment of Miller Avenue. I've worked over 21 years in education management, leading new business and product development, responsible for $50 million in revenue, business segment P&Ls, and managing over 200 employees. Currently, I'm a pro bono consultant supporting local nonprofits in the areas of health and wellness and affordable housing, serving those most in need in our community. I know how to work with many stakeholders to build consensus and how to set and execute goals. I understand the work necessary to make sound, well-balanced decisions, and I know what fiscal responsibility entails. My priorities as council member will include continued fiscal prudence, managed growth and development, preservation, and traffic as both a quality of life and safety issue. Your Mill Valley is my Mill Valley. My family and I are grounded here, and we have a deep interest and stake in preserving our city's heritage and being a steward of its future. Thank you.
Sashi.
My husband Dave and I have lived in Mill Valley for 15 years. We're raising our 2 daughters here, and we have based our family business here as well. I currently serve as Vice Chair of the Emergency Preparedness Commission and Chair of the CERT Steering Committee, and I'm an active volunteer with the schools and with Kiddo. I'm running for City Council because I love Mill Valley, and I think we need a fresh perspective to address our current challenges. My top priorities are addressing traffic, aging infrastructure, emergency preparedness, and sustainability. In this election, we have a chance to build a strong team who will listen first and then take action to reduce traffic congestion, to fix our roads, to prepare us for wildland fire and flood, and to protect our environment. We can do this together. I would be honored to have your vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
Stephanie.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Moulton Peters. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this. I love Mill Valley. I've served on the City Council for 2 terms. I've raised a family here and have developed deep roots in this community. I've worked with many of you to get things done. There is more to do, and I want to see some important, complex projects through. This includes addressing traffic. We have a traffic committee that I helped start. We're looking seriously at school buses, a study that I initiated with other council members on the Marin Transit Board 2 years ago, and this is ready to bear fruit for Mill Valley now. The infrastructure, streets and sewers, as well as our roads, need addressing through the update of the municipal services tax. The construction of Miller Avenue will be the largest public works project we undertake, and I've been involved in that intimately for the last 10 years. The new Mill Valley Aware Coalition that I co-founded looks at teen substance abuse and ways our community can come together to address this issue. And finally, continuing to develop communication and collaboration with our community has long been an area of interest and importance to me. So I'd like to continue these projects and see them through, and I ask for your vote this fall. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jim Wickham. I'm a 4th-generation Mill Valleyan, married to Susie Wickham, who also grew up in Mill Valley. We have raised our 5 children here. Our youngest is now in high school. I have 2 grandchildren. They're 6th-generation Mill Valleans, and my youngest one is going to kindergarten at McGuire School. For most of my career, I was on the police force here. I retired from Mill Valley Police Department after 37 years in 2010. I'm a former Rotarian, past president of TAM Boosters, and I have volunteered hundreds of hours in our community, including bringing back the Mill Valley Carnival to Memorial Day weekend. We have a wonderful, beautiful town here, great small town charm, top-notch schools, parks and community facilities, but our success has brought new challenges for us, traffic congestion and housing density. Emergency preparedness is also important to me. We have a very active core of community residents who constantly promote, participate, and work closely with our first responders. With my 40 years of experience and knowledge in emergency services, I would be your advocate in making sure Mill Valley remains as the highest level preparedness. We have other challenges ahead of us. We have to address traffic congestion, modernizing our infrastructure, and improve our facilities. We also have to protect the fragile environment of our hillsides, creeks, and the bay. Working together as a community, we can build trust that allows for communication, collaboration, and cooperation as we move forward to protecting Mill Valley's small town character. Thank you.
And thank you. Now we'll begin the question portion of the debate. Candidates have 1 minute to respond to each one. We'll rotate the order of questioning, beginning with Kirknauer. How well do you think Mill Valley is prepared to prevent or fight fires? What role should the City Council play in improving firefighting capabilities?
We, Mill Valley, live in a urban wildland interface. We go to great lengths to exist in that environment. Our police department and our fire protection services are top-notch. The work of the council is collaborative. Without the community involved in CERT, emergency preparedness, and many other emergency programs in Mill Valley, it'd be very difficult to execute. So the city departments, fire department, our police department is top-notch in creating defensible barriers around homes, and ensuring that our fire roads in the 3 canyons are clear of brush to provide for fire breaks in the event of fire. One of the concerns we have in Mill Valley is that in 1929, in the fire of 1929, there were approximately 20 houses on the same foot of land where there are 100 houses today. This density creates many pressures on providing fire prevention in the community.
Sasha.
Well, I I've been lucky to work with the fire and police departments as part of the Emergency Preparedness Commission and the CERT Steering Committee. And I'm proud of our fire department, who's earned an ISO Class 1 rating, largely because of their community outreach and because of our vegetation management program. Our municipal service tax, 25% of that funds the vegetation management program, and I think we've done a really excellent job of clearing fuel loads and also working with the open space district to create defensible space around the outskirts of our town. In addition, another natural hazard that we have is flood, and we're also staying ahead of that with winter storm preparation. We could definitely do more in the area of flood prevention. But we need to make sure that we don't lose focus on our fire prevention efforts and maintain funding of those efforts.
Thank you. Great. My colleagues have done a very good job of explaining the many facets of Mill Valley's, I'll call it the award-winning fire prevention program we have. The Marin Grand Jury has pointed to Mill Valley as the model for fire prevention in Marin, if not in the state. We have won awards from the California Association of Emergency Management Professionals for our management. So we have a strong record to build on, and all the things that have been mentioned are important to maintain. Two things that I can see us working on is more the citizen end. It is the creating defensible space and taking steps under the Firewise prevention program that we're a part of now in Mill Valley, and continuing to do our emergency evacuation drills, which involve citizen participation. This is something that I brought from the West Blythedale Canyon Neighborhood Association to our Preparedness Commission. We've done this now for 7 years. It's a chance for residents to practice evacuating their homes on foot or by car to really understand what that's about.
Since 1982 to 2005, I was both at the winter storms in '82 and the winter storms of 2005, plus the Gray Slick Fire. That was a wildland fire in the Kite Hill area. As you know, my background in public safety is really important to the community because it helps out with emergency preparedness. I've been actively involved over my years with the emergency sirens, with designated parking in our community, and working closely with our fire department. And I will continue to advocate local community participation with CERT and other organizations to make sure our community is prepared for the worst case scenario like we just had in Lake County. Vegetation management and all the other programs that we currently have in Mill Valley, I will continue to enforce and hopefully fund higher so we can continue to have that buffer zone between our wildland fires and our local community. And thank you.
Yes, the recent horrific fire not too far from us up in Lake County was a reminder both of the risk and of the ability to minimize human life. One of the things that I was noticeable about that fire is it came upon the community so quickly that people literally could only grab their animals and their children. One concern I have is that if we do have an emergency here, that people will tend to load up their cars with all of the things they think they may need. One concern, and there's been within the past year, there was enough of a traffic congestion during a high tide where in fact our roads became absolutely impassable. So I would implore all citizens to really grab their children, grab their pets, have a go bag ready with your valuable things, your medicine, and then please do not get in your cars during an emergency, as that will prevent the first responders from getting to the source of the flame. Thank you.
Next question. How would you reconcile your community's desire to maintain a small town feel with the demand for more affordable housing? And we'll begin with Sashi.
Well, I think that the small town character of Mill Valley is the reason that people come here, and it's something that we need to preserve. We need to maintain our existing affordable housing stock and perhaps expand it with looking into junior units, the way Sausalito has done, and more infill development. Something else that we've done that I think is a step in the right direction is that we now have draft multi-use and mixed family design guidelines so that we can keep an eye on development in the downtown area so that it continues to preserve the small town character. And small town character really is on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis. So we need to maintain good communications with the neighborhoods in order to make sure that we preserve that on a neighborhood by neighborhood level.
Yes, small town character is an important value for Mill Valley. It's hard to really put your finger on what it means, but I think first and foremost for me it means a sense of community and neighborhoods that we all feel, and it's important. It's also hosted by our schools and the sense of community that the families there have. It's a part of our geography that has us tucked into the valley, so we've got that cozy, tucked in feeling. To support that, the council has taken a lot of steps with our general plan and our housing element to look for small infill development, focusing on smaller units that will be more affordable. We're looking at ways to produce more affordable housing, to keep the diversity that we have, and also to maintain some of the apartment buildings and condominiums that are affordable. So there's lots to work on, and I'm committed to do it.
You know, I grew up in Mill Valley in the 60s, and Mill Valley was a small town. We were a blue-collar town where we had police officers living here, we had firefighters, we had teachers. And I know what a small town looks like. Over the years, though, we have lost that charm because it's gotten very expensive, and people have to move out of our county. I'm totally acceptable to affordable housing, especially for our workforce, because I believe strongly that we should have our police officers and our firefighters living in our community, and our teachers also. So being on the city council is important to me, and to relay that message that we need to work together in our neighborhoods, provide some type of affordable housing that will work for our police, fire, teachers, and for those who actually serve our community in Mill Valley. Thank you.
Yes, these forums that we candidates have been participating has been very interesting and been kind of a lesson in where the community's interests are and where my focus would be. And it turns out that I actually am a renter. I rent downtown. I refer that as due to my New York City roots, where in New York City, everything was within a block of you. So I think that's where I ended up. I did when I moved here in '89, did have a house and a family, and now I found myself, like many of you, kind of empty nesters, single people. So I decided I was not involved with the housing element in the general plan, but I have committed publicly, and I do it here again, to, if elected, I'll put my shoulder against and use my resources to try and foster more housing downtown so that people can live and perhaps work downtown. As I currently do, I still work downtown at a locally owned resident serving business, all wrapped up. Thank you.
Thank you. Not to repeat what my colleagues have said, or my fellow candidates have said already here, the general plan and the housing element, it's a difficult position we're in as a town with the demands or the pressures on real estate and many families and businesses trying to maximize the potential of that investment. We have approximately 340 units of affordable housing in Mill Valley. There's the opportunity to have more, even though we are at capacity. I mentioned that I spent time with affordable housing doing consulting work with a builder, and I asked the question, and one of the concerns presented to me was, we're a town at capacity. It makes it difficult to build in your town, so you need to have the viable real estate. Secondly, you have to have the political will in your town to build affordable housing. And typically, not to misconceive what affordable housing is, it can be, the quality of affordable housing is far superior to my 600 square foot home tucked in the woods of Mill Valley. And so capacity, the building will, the will of a builder to come in, and the political will of its citizenry and council and staff to make affordable housing. I do believe we have opportunities, and we should continue to look at affordable housing potential.
The public dialogue regarding future growth in Marin County has become divisive and counterproductive. How would you change the nature of this discourse? And we'll begin with Stephanie.
This is a difficult question indeed. There are many facets to the whole discussion of development in Marin County. And I think one of the most basic things we need to do is have a shared set of facts that we can all work from about what's happening in Marin County. The most recent ABAG numbers for Marin County and going forward represent 1% to 2% growth for the coming decade. This is exactly the amount of growth we've had in previous years in reality in Marin County. So there is no big pressure coming at us from regional government to overdevelop Marin County. It's in line with what we've been doing in the past. That said, our roads are at capacity all throughout Marin County. There's no doubt about it. So we have to be very thoughtful about where we put the development, the scale of it, and how well it fits into the communities where it's proposed.
Our recently adopted general plan for 2040 has a housing element in there. And for the next 8 years, right now, I don't believe there's anywhere we can virtually have a huge complex that none of us want. Mill Valley is pretty much built out in lots, but we are constantly remodeling. And I'm totally agreeable to working with neighbors and communication, cooperation to how we can address some of our housing needs that we need to address in Mill Valley. And personally, I think through local participation and working with our neighbors and the city council with staff, we can come up with a formula that will fit the charm of Mill Valley, but also provide the additional housing that we need to make Mill Valley a viable and charming place as we all want. Thank you.
Yes, the Wind Cub project in Corte Madera, and closer to home, the Tamalpais Commons project on Lovell Avenue downtown, to me are monuments to what not to build. I think that without getting into how each of those got built, I think they brought a tremendous amount of attention to what was a lot of rhetoric, a lot of justifiable concern about what could happen to Miller Avenue. In my 25 years of being downtown, being part of downtown, there's been a handful of projects that have been built, and the process currently, which is highly vetted, is controlled by a highly viewed and paid to attention constituency, in my opinion, does not make the proliferation of any kind of dense housing in Mill Valley a concern. So that's how I feel about that. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to put the focus on in Mill Valley. As candidates have said, we have a general plan. We will move forward with that general plan for the years to come. As the general plan is our guiding post, we have principles in Mill Valley to keep the small town character or core values that are intended to preserve our small town character. We're at capacity, and where there are opportunities to build, those will be fitting or need to fit in with the aspects of the neighborhood. We have a planning commission. We have a planning and development building department. They're focused on the general plan and our housing element and ensuring that we stick to our core values as a small town. Preservation of the community that respects Mills Valley's character, fiscal policies and practices, or preservation of our community's high quality of life. These are all impacted with development, and I don't believe we as a town that is built out will be able to continue to grow with large projects in the city.
You mentioned that the nature of the dialogue has become divisive, and I think that the reason for that is that people don't necessarily feel that they're being heard and that their views are being respected. And I think that people have passionate opinions and concerns that are well-founded. We've seen what has happened with the Wind Cup development, and I think in a way it's good to have that as an example of what not to do that people can point to. But the way that we address changing the nature of the dialogue is changing how we talk with each other so that people can feel an atmosphere of mutual respect. I think the city has done an excellent job in improving its outbound communications, and I think we just need to do a better job of generating more inbound communications and engaging with the public so that people do feel like they're being listened to and that they don't have to raise their voices and shout to be heard.
Thank you. Please provide your thoughts on funding the city's pension and other post-employment benefits. Do you see a need to change the negotiating process or transparency guidelines applied to future contract talks? And we'll begin with Jim.
We're all aware of the COIN concept, where we're more transparent with our negotiations. Being with the police department for 37 years, I was on both sides of the table for the police association and for the management sign. When it comes to COIN, I have no problem at the point of an open proposal when the city is going to present a proposal to these unions to allow the community to see what the city will be presenting to those unions. At that point, I believe negotiations should come to a stop, should not be transparent, and then at the very end, when both sides have come to a tentative agreement, I'll then allow for a 14-day period of time for public comment. I think this is very important. Our city has done a lot of good things over the past 6-7 years to make sure that we're providing a viable pension and slowly moving out of the unlimited liability that we have with CalPERS and our OPEB. Thank you.
Yes, as part of the candidate process, the City of Mill Valley has opened a little wider than normal the opportunities to talk to the heads of the departments. I was able last week to sit down with Eric Erickson, who's been in charge of our financial department for 13 years. I was under the impression that OPEB just came into the public consciousness after the Lehman collapse in 2008, but he informed me that it was in the Mill Valley's consciousness in 2004, and that starting in 2004, Mill Valley has taken steps and is way ahead of the curve, is probably on top of its class in meeting its unfunded liability. I also sat in at the council meeting a few weeks ago where the discussion was made about whether or not for the city to participate in the COIN project. It was there that I kind of learned about COIN. There were two very well-spoken Mill Valley citizens that spoke to its benefits, and I think I agree with the decision of the City Council for now not to adopt COIN.
There are two aspects of this, and as candidates have mentioned, COIN. We practice that as a city. Many of the things we do come out of our efforts to ensure there's transparency in process. That said, we took those ideas from COIN to appoint an independent negotiator at council, making fiscal impact analysis more obvious. We as a council in the past, and it goes way back as a town with openness and the idea to involve the community. We consider the council has disclosed negotiations at the front end and at the tail end of our negotiations with the unions. As far as the unfunded pension liability, the council and the state have done a lot to address this issue, creating a two-tier system to take over the issues for new hires. We as a city have pooled our risk and bonded its unfunded liability. We've reduced our scope of OPEB benefits and increased the amount we are contributing to our unfunded OPEB liability.
So there were two questions here. One was about transparency in the negotiation process, and one was about funding pension and other post-employment benefits. And I think that transparency is really important. If people don't feel like they understand what's going on and that they've had enough time to digest and respond to contract proposals, then you get proposals like COIN, which require an extreme level of scrutiny. So I think that we need to address the public's need to know these things and address the transparency issue by giving the public enough time to respond to and digest any new potential contracts. On the pension and other post-employment benefits side, I think we've made a good step in moving from partial prepayment of our retiree health benefits to full prepayment. I think that's a good step. I think there are other steps that we could take. I think we should definitely down the road consider moving from a defined benefit to a defined contribution system. And there are other things that I think that we can do, but we've made some good first steps there.
So we took up the issue of the COIN proposal, and as fellow candidate Jim Wickham has said, we coalesced on more upfront information about the proposals for negotiation going forward, and we agreed to give a longer time for the public to review the outcomes of those negotiations before the council approves them, as well as a financial review of any of the retirement benefits that change. So I support these efforts. I think they're solid and worthwhile. I'll also say that over the last 6 years, I worked with former Mayor Andy Berman. We took a series of very deliberate intentional steps to rein in our pension costs and future liabilities, as well as OPEB. We've added on to that in the current council and now have a 6.5% discount rate, which is more in line with what the market produces. So we've made some solid steps and we'll continue to work on this.
Traffic continues to be a major issue throughout Marin. How might the City Council affect positive change in this area? And we'll begin with Ken.
Yes, traffic. In order to get here from Mill Valley to San Rafael, I did leave myself extra 10 minutes to get out of town. Luckily, I was here 10 minutes early. So we are in the midst of a very robust organization of stakeholders dealing with traffic. What we've all learned is that Caltrans, neighboring communities, 101 all affect our traffic issues. I think that we're headed towards a school bus option in our town. Tiburon, after 2 years, has a successful business model there requiring both parent participation and buy-in by the City Council. I would like, if I'm on the council, I'd like to make sure that if the task force comes up with a school bus option, that option is funded quickly, that we take some of our existing funds to jumpstart this, and perhaps take a bond measure later to back fund it. Thank you.
Our City Council has taken steps to get ahead of this issue as the issue has evolved. This isn't the first time Mill Valley has had serious traffic issues. About 6 months ago, it was decided by Council to organize a task force. That task force is comprised of leadership from our city, staff, council, citizens or residents from our town, and outside agencies to look at the serious problems in our two corridors that choke traffic. I expect there will be great outcomes coming from this traffic advisory task force. And some of them, having attended the first two meetings, will be this. With very small incremental steps, we can decrease our traffic flow on those two corridors and free it up the way we can free it up. Each of us making fewer trips per day, multimodal transportation options. Already mentioned the school buses, neighborhood carpools, changes in our infrastructure to encourage multimodal transport choices, and getting more of us out on our bikes and walking when that opportunity presents itself.
Well, the traffic committee is a great start, and I'm really happy to see there's a Caltrans representative on there so that we can fix that light at Tennessee Valley that makes us all crazy. And hopefully we can look at things like putting another lane on the ramp up to 101 South and some other solutions. The school bus solution, I've talked to the Tiburon people. I think it's great that we have an example. They're in year 2 now that we can look at and use when we're doing our planning. It's going to be a combination of solutions that will solve the traffic problem, and each of us will have to make our own behavior changes. In my family, we have one car and we have an e-bike. We have to plan around our trips so that we can make sure that we can do everything we need to do, but we try to walk into town for short trips as much as possible. I think that in the council, we can help people find choices they can make to reduce traffic that we all create and that we are all a part of solving.
I am totally up for the challenge of dealing with traffic in Mill Valley. I've actually been doing this with school kids for the last 15 years with Safe Routes to School, and at this point, 50% of our Mill Valley Middle School children are walking and biking to school. If the kids can do it, the adults can do it. As has been said by my colleagues, there's no silver bullet. There's silver buckshot. There's a lot of little answers, and we all need to be a part of it. So the city can do its part. The community needs to do its part. School buses would certainly provide welcome relief. I've been at that for the last 2 years, and I suspect that we'll fund this in the future. But it also is incumbent on adults to look at the trips they make. Maybe we'll follow the Fairfax model of reduce by 2 and each figure out 2 trips we can reduce each week. All we have to do is reduce by 15% the current trips we're making, and our roads will flow more smoothly, and we'll get in and out of town more easily. Thank you.
With Mill Valley, you have to realize our town came together back in 1910 when we had trains and horses and some Model A cars. So our streets in Mill Valley aren't really designed for modern day technology and for the overpopulation of vehicles. Currently, we have about 11 trips to and from our house leaving town, where our streets are only designed for 6 trips. And what we got to do is, like Stephanie mentioned, is we have to educate each other that that 15% goal of reducing traffic would drastically increase the time it would take, or drastically reduce the time it would take to get out of town. You know, the Yellow School Bus program, I think, is an awesome program that we can use pertaining to Strawberry and McGuire School to hopefully get students onto the buses so that we'll clear up that area. And of course, working with Caltrans on the stoplights in Tennessee Valley Road and over the overpass will be beneficial for us all. But we need to work together and get out of our cars and start walking more and riding our bikes. Thank you.
What suggestions do you have for providing services to a growing population that is 60 and over? We'll begin with Kirk.
I'd like to start by going back to the affordable housing. The pressures on our senior community to continue to live in Mill Valley, it's hard. About a third of our population, many of them seniors, make $75,000, or their income is $75,000 or less per year. We need to provide opportunities to support them. One of the concerns I have is safety. As a senior, the streets of Mill Valley aren't safe to walk in, with the priority being cars. Providing safe routes to schools for seniors is another item that I think is very important. We need to continue to look at the diversity of our population, and that includes our senior population. Thank you.
Well, we are home to the Redwoods, which is a really active and vibrant senior community that is out there every Friday waving their signs, and I really always appreciate seeing them and waving to them. I think that the sidewalks are actually a kind of a big concern. In general, we need to update our sidewalk ordinance and make sure that it is safe for seniors to be walking around. A great number of our emergency service calls are also directed to the aging population. We do have our Healthy Parks, Healthy People initiative that's just happening through recreation, that's encouraging people to get out and go for walks. I think that's a really exciting way to, on the positive side, to encourage people to be healthy. I think the police department does a fairly good job of addressing some things like scams, people who deliberately prey upon the aging. But I think that that's a population that we need to pay attention to because they're a big part of our vibrant Mill Valley community.
Seniors are a very important priority for me. In my role as the chair of the Transportation Authority of Marin and a member of the Marin Transit District Board, we are focusing a lot of attention on providing transportation options for seniors. So we have taxi subsidies and volunteer drivers and the Whistle Stop program and others. We need to build on this, and we are working on that. Our safe routes for seniors, there's an example in Mill Valley of the new sidewalk we put in front of the Redwoods, especially to help them connect with the rest of the community on Miller Avenue and across with the Safeway, et cetera. And finally, the City of Mill Valley has a wonderful senior center in our community center, and we're talking about expanding the services and having more resource information available to the entire community about how to age in place and age comfortably. Our Mill Valley Villages program is part of this, and we're making a lot of progress.
Yes, after 9/11, I decided to relocate my mom from New York to Mill Valley, and she stayed with me and she stayed in my store. And what I learned firsthand, if you have a walker and you're in downtown Mill Valley, you've got total access. As much as we gripe about the ADA requiring curb cuts and things like that, downtown Mill Valley is extremely accessible to elderly people. However, how do the elderly people get to downtown Mill Valley? Well, mobility is probably the single biggest thing that the people who age are concerned about. The Rotary Club of Mill Valley helps underwrite the Redwoods bus to the tune of $10,000 a year. From what I understand, the the implementing, now they have 2 buses, has totally changed and increased the lifestyle of the citizens of the Redwood. So in prior forums, when the school bus idea has come up, I have suggested more of an Uber-type on-demand vehicle that could be used possibly during school hours for school children, and perhaps not during non-school hours be used to help add mobility to those who don't drive a car. Thank you.
Thank you. Back in 1972, my father was on the city council and was mayor when the Redwoods was approved for development at the marshlands. And to me, the Redwoods is the ideal situation for our community. My grandmother was there, my great-grandmother was there, and this is an institution that we should be very proud of in Mill Valley as a city. And as the Redwoods looks at expanding, possibly an Alzheimer's unit, that we should support it completely. Our community needs to step up and take care of our elders. As Stephanie mentioned here, our community center is a fantastic, beautiful location, and we should obviously be providing services to our seniors to help them out any way we can. As a councilman, I would make sure that they're taken care of, that the sidewalks are protected around their homes, and we'll do everything we can to make them feel comfortable in Mill Valley as they age. Thank you.
Okay. What actions do you believe should be taken in Mill Valley to maintain the town's vibrant business community? And we'll begin with Sashi.
Well, the Miller Avenue Streetscape project is a long overdue overhaul of our street, and it's going to create a Class 2 bike lane going all the way down, a sidewalk, and a promenade, which I think will, in the longer term, really enhance the middle part of Miller as also a destination. In the short term, during the construction process, we're going to have to manage that very carefully to make sure that Miller Avenue businesses are able to survive that transition and be able to inform their customers and make changes to the construction impacts. In addition, residents will also have to be very well informed on a daily or a weekly basis, depending on what the changes are, so that by the time we're done, we have a beautiful, new, safe Miller Avenue and keep our vibrant Miller Avenue business community.
So local businesses have always been an important part of Mill Valley. It's been difficult given the challenge from corporations that take all the essential functions and put them out in the big box stores on the highway. It's been a challenge for our city and all small cities to maintain the necessities that our community needs in the downtown or Miller Avenue. The Miller Avenue plan seeks to keep all of our resident-serving businesses, like our auto repair garages, which I know my family and I have used often, right there where we can get to them easily. The Miller plan will beautify that street and make it safer for everyone. We have a marvelous model of how to do it right in our PG&E in their gas undergrounding project in downtown. We know how to make these connections with business to make it as smooth as possible during construction. Finally, the Chamber of Commerce has been a wonderful partner with the city in promoting economic development in Mill Valley.
You know, growing up in Mill Valley here back in the 60s, I can go downtown and virtually shop anywhere for shoes, men's clothing, you know, Cub Scouts, anything else. We have totally lost that economic vitality downtown in the sense that we don't have services that we want as a community. We need to work with our landlords to hopefully come up with a program to where when we attract new businesses, it's a program to where something that we want as a community. We don't need any more salons in town. We don't need more furniture stores or women's clothing. We need some viable options that we can help substantiate. The Miller Avenue Precise Plan is a great program to bring people downtown. I've been actively involved with our local chamber for years and bring the Snow Fest and activities in our center of town to bring our community together. And hopefully, as a city council, we work with the chamber and we're able to come up with a plan to where businesses can stay in town and without the landlords, you know, charging out astronomical rent. Because to me, that's very important. Thank you.
Yes, being a downtown store owner for 14 years, I like to consider myself an expert in that field. And my joke was it only takes 6 years to become a doctor, so after that many years, I consider myself an expert. And one observation is that, in fact, I shared at the last forum that you can't get a needle and thread in town. And actually, I was corrected by one of my friends that said, no, you can go to the business, his name escapes me, across from 7-Eleven, and they sell thread. In the 90s, there was no internet, there was no Amazon. FedEx was mostly doing business. The climate has changed dramatically. In my opinion, there's very few vacancies in Mill Valley. We are a vibrant town. The things that make that have funded our schools, that have made our housing so desirable, has worked part and parcel with our community vitality. Sales tax revenue is up, and I feel like that's a testimony to everything going on in town.
Yes, keeping the vitality of our downtown alive and well. It's a tenet or a basic tenet of our general plan and our precise Miller plan to continue to keep a vibrant downtown and supporting our local small businesses. We have an active Chamber of Commerce and active citizenry. As a council member, it's our responsibility to listen to our landlords, listen to our business owners, and ensure that we support them in their efforts to do business in our town and not make it difficult for them to do business in our town. As you've heard from our colleagues, the nature of the services that are available in our downtown area have changed dramatically. These are driven by market forces. That said, we do have to consider when there are vacancies and vacancies start to build up, should the vibrancy of the marketplace not fill all our stores, be concerned about the gaps and the plight that might create should things deteriorate. That is not our case in Mill Valley, but we need to continue to support our local businesses.
Do you believe that short-term rentals, such as those facilitated by Airbnb, benefit your community? What guidelines and/or regulations, if any, are appropriate?
So the Mill Valley City Council had a discussion item about this within the last couple of months. And where we landed was that at this point in time, we're going to ask those residents who do vacation rentals to register with the city and obtain a business license. And with this information, we'll develop an inventory and we'll begin to monitor the situation to see just exactly what the impacts are on the city. In some parts of Sonoma County, there have been difficulties with these rentals becoming party houses, and so regulations are being developed there to address that. We don't know if this is a significant issue for us. We do know that we've heard from our neighbors that having people come in and out on a rotating basis does change the character of the neighborhood and the rhythm and the pattern of neighborhoods. So it's something we're going to watch along with the parking impacts, and we'll decide probably within a year or so where we go from here.
I agree with what Stephanie said, where Airbnb is more or less a good program as long as we can monitor it and make sure it's not going to disrupt the neighborhoods, because we don't want to have any drug houses or prostitution rings going on with Airbnb. But more importantly, why people rent their rooms out sometimes is because they can't afford to live in Mill Valley. And it's a source of income. And sometimes we don't have enough, hotel space coming into Mill Valley. And this is a great way for people to live here in town and also go downtown and shop and go to our restaurants. So we have to balance the needs out to make sure, though, locally in our neighborhoods, it's not affecting traffic or any of our other vital functions. And I think we support it. So I agree with Stephanie that we need to monitor it, and hopefully it's a viable program that we could work together with. Thank you.
Well, as I said earlier, I was on the vice chair of the Community Vitality and the Arts Commission, and as much of the virtues are in here, the preponderance of Airbnb and Uber, these two massive economic shifts, was not in the horizon. I was in the room when the council had to decide on whether to introduce any additional legislation for Airbnb, and I think they made the right call in not introducing anything. That decision got validated when a few weeks later Tiburon, in a 3-2 vote, voted to outlaw Airbnb, but at the very next meeting it got reversed. So I think that the marketplace is a very powerful thing, and one shouldn't spend a lot of time trying to stop it from occurring. Just ask the music industry about that. I also know that most of the people who choose to visit here are just like us. They want to hike, they want to, not have to be in a car, and they want to enjoy our beautiful town. Thank you.
Yes, as already mentioned, our council and our city is addressing the issue of short-term rentals. It's important to, and again, this touches on our core values and our small town character, that being a basic tenet of our core values. If Airbnb or other services drive out the renters and affordability and make it unaffordable to live in Mill Valley, by looking at short-term daily rates that might bring in more rent per month than having it rented out to my mom or a young couple trying to raise their kid, that would be a problem. So council is looking at this with prudence, and we will continue, that is council and our city, continue to look at this matter. And I as council member will take a measured approach, looking at the best practices out there and how it impacts our neighborhoods.
Well, one of the great things about Mill Valley is that we all really know our neighbors, and we all have good communication within our neighborhoods. So if you own a home and you want to do a short-term rental, you should be able to do that, and you should be able to, if there's a problem, the neighbors can generally, for the most part, work it out, and if the police need to be called, then the police need to be called. But I think we should monitor it to see if it's becoming an increasing problem, but in general, I think it's a great idea. I think also if we continue forward looking at legalizing junior units, then that's potentially another viable way to recover some of your costs of owning a home by making that adding that to our affordable housing stock. So these are options that are open to all of our homeowners.
This is the last question. Is there a question we should have asked but didn't? We'll start with Jim.
Basically, traffic has been one of the big issues. We talked about emergency preparedness is some concern. Bicycle pedestrians, we pretty well cover everything. Our local commercial businesses, our parks, our buildings. The only thing I could say is that the biggest asset we have in Mill Valley right now are our city employees. We have 140 city employees, and you know what? And they're the ones who pull the weeds, cut the grass, clean the restrooms, fill the potholes. And for me, being a city employee for 37 years, that was my family. And I just want to make sure when we're on the city council that our employees are taken care of and that they have the tools that they need to do their job. So that's probably one thing that we haven't really talked about is the asset that is so strong to us that we need to maintain. So thank you.
Yes, the Nextdoor Social Media, which is a private company, has really kind of changed the information matrix in our town. It's both a place to get rid of an old cat box. It's a place to find if somebody needs a lift to San Francisco. But it's also become a forum for discuss some of the perceptions of the shortcomings of our town and our planning commission and things like that. And I, as kind of an observer of this for a long time, feel that perhaps there's until you've either sat in the shoes of the planning commission or sat in some of those meetings, I think you'd get a better understanding of the kind of civic involvement, community involvement, and general good intentions of all who serve either voluntarily or are paid to do so by our cities. I just wanted to kind of clarify that. Thank you.
Yes, an item we haven't touched on, and it relates directly to this campaign. We're a wealthy city, it's a vibrant city, but I believe that we as citizens should have a direct involvement in our government. One of the big concerns I have is campaign finance. In our small town, a town of 14,500 people, with maybe 5,000 people who vote in an election. I've set the limit on my campaign to $75 per individual to ensure that my votes, or my campaign I should say, isn't driven by large dollars. We as a city have a hard time getting CIPs or capital improvement projects approved and carried through for $10,000. Campaigns in Mill Valley cost as high as $20,000. That shouldn't be happening. Mill Valley needs a representative government that looks and speaks with the people and for the people. So setting that limit, I want to make sure that we get a grasp on campaign finance.
Well, I think one thing that we haven't really touched a lot on is flood, and we're coming into winter storm season. There's a greater than 95% chance of an El Nino this year, and we need to be prepared and learn from the lessons from the '05 flood and the flood from a couple of years ago. I think we're doing a better job of clearing the brush, and the crews are going to get started on some of the creek work coming up here, but I think there's a lot of work we could do to be better prepared for winter storms and try to get prepared earlier. And that is, I think, a big concern to everybody in the flats and the Sycamore Triangle, people who go and stand on the Legion Bridge and watch the creek rushing by and see the silt build up there. So I think flood control is something that I'm really concerned about as well.
I would agree with Sashi that flood prevention is one of these sticky wicket items. It's complicated. We have been looking into it with the county and the flood control district. We have not made the kind of progress that I would like to have seen. Council members shepherd different initiatives. I have been focused more on traffic and pensions, but last summer I became involved in the watershed and flood group as an alternate, and I could see that the effort was pretty mired, and so I raised the flag and did so again this year when I didn't see progress. As Sashi has said, there will be an aggressive effort waved by both our DPW and fire departments. It has begun. They're working their way down from Warner Canyon, down Corte Madera, Del Presidio Creek to clear vegetation and remove the silt that they can under permits. There's more to do to combine the Stetson study with an assessment of our storm drains and the impacts of king tides, and I make a strong commitment to move this thing forward in the next 4 years.
That ends the question portion of this debate. Before the candidates give their closing statements, we'd like to remind you of some important dates. Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. If you wish to register or have moved since the last time you voted and need to re-register, the deadline is Monday, October 19th. Requests for vote-by-mail ballots must be received by the Registrar of Voters no later than Tuesday, October 27th. Early voting begins on Monday, October 5th at Civic Center, room 121. Polls are open from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. For more election-related information, you may visit the League's website at smartvoter.org. You can watch these debates on our local website, marinlwv.org, or on Community Access Television, cmcm.tv. Now each candidate will have 1.5 minutes for a closing statement. We'll begin in reverse alphabetical order, starting with Jim.
I'm running for the Mill Valley City Council to give back to the community that has given so much to my family and me. As a retired police officer, I want to protect and serve our small town in Mill Valley as your next city council member. With 37 years of personal knowledge of how our city works, I will bring a new perspective to the council along with integrity, common sense, and the willingness to listen and represent all of you in our community. Everyone has a vision to what a great small town should be like. I grew up in this one, and I worked hard and smart to live here, even as it got more expensive, giving hope to the next generation that it's still possible. With help from people like you and a strong and vibrant city staff, we can keep Mill Valley a unique and special place for years to come. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the Marin Professional Firefighters and current Mill Valley Mayor Ken Wachtel, former Mill Valley Mayors Dennis Fisco, Kathleen Foote, Chris Raker, and Clifford Waldeck, plus many more members of our community, who you can find at my website, jimwickham4millvalley.com. I look forward to discussing how we can make Mill Valley even better in the weeks ahead, and I ask for your support in the upcoming election. Thank you.
It's been my pleasure to serve on the Mill Valley City Council twice as mayor. We've made a lot of great strides in many important areas. With the uptick in the economy, the housing boom, and the traffic, there is more to do. The issues are complex, and I bring the knowledge and experience to address these issues. Traffic is a #1 priority. School buses are an immediate possibility, but the whole community gets to be involved in this one. Fire and flooding need our attention always. The Mill Valley Aware program to address student substance abuse and binge drinking is one that's very important to me and many in our community. I want to see that through. And always there is room for improvement on communication and collaboration with City Hall and our staff, and I want to continue to be part of that effort. I am hardworking. I don't duck the tough issues. I'm honest. I've worked with many of you. I like to get things done, and there's plenty to do. I've been endorsed by many former mayors, Congressman Jared Huffman and State Senator Mike McGuire. I'm willing to keep at it and give it 110% for the next 4 years. I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Well, thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you all for watching today. Mill Valley is an extraordinary place with intelligent, creative, engaged citizens who give generously of their time and energy to keep it that way. We need to foster good two-way communication with the community so that we can create an environment of mutual respect and we can take action together. This is how we will maintain our small town character, by listening to each other and by taking decisive action to solve our current challenges. I'm committed to making sure the council is building the public trust and continuing to reach out and engage with the community. Community engagement is going to be crucial to our success in meeting all of our challenges. I'm proud to be endorsed by the Sierra Club of Marin, and Mill Valley is worth fighting for, and I humbly ask for your vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
With 3 incumbent seats open, this is an election that will play a very important role in determining the course and future of our city. My 20 years in the private sector, my 2 terms on Parks and Recreation, and my nonprofit experience provides me with the background necessary to bring the discipline and patience to council and work through details and complex issues, always considering the diversity of stakeholders when making those decisions. My service on Parks and Recreation has demonstrated that I have the skills and I'm prepared to serve on council. We navigate some delicate issues there, and I've always sought to build consensus and compromise while remaining grounded in the pursuit of excellence and fairness. I value inclusiveness to better understand and to help make difficult choices and drive positive outcomes. I listen to the voice of our community. My integrity, transparency, and common sense are strong attributes for council. I'm running to serve our city and its long-standing history of leaders striving for excellence in government service. I'm very proud and honored to have the support and endorsements of many of our former city mayors, including Andy Berman, Betsy Cutler, Kathleen Foote, Dennis Visco, and Cliff Waldeck. You will have 3 votes November 3rd, and I humbly ask for one of those votes. Please visit kirkjnauer.com to learn more about my views or pledge your support. I look forward to serving Mill Valley. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. As I've said, it's a great honor and privilege to be able to run for the council member of our town. If one were to look at the news these days, everything about the political process seems kind of uncomfortable, awkward, and dissatisfactory. My decision to run is to kind of bring to the council both my old school institutional knowledge, wearing many different hats in this town, plus my ongoing kind of creative vision, my enthusiasm, my ability to see solutions where other people don't. I pride myself on my commitment on all my years of chamber involvement and chairing both 2 committees of the general plan. I never missed a meeting once. I'm a consensus builder. I like to work well with others. I'm able to maintain my sense of humor in most difficult situations, because once you've lost your sense of humor, you've kind of lost it all. I am grateful that the city was able to bring 5 qualified candidates to this election. Our neighboring towns have not been that fortunate. So I also ask for your vote. I've decided to drink coffee at our new local business, Equator Coffee, every morning from 9 to 10. I welcome a visit with you there. We can explore more in detail my views on some of the issues that have been raised here or issues that concern you. So once again, I ask for your vote. Ken Brooks. Thank you.
That ends this candidate forum. Thank you again to the candidates and to our timekeeper, Pamela Gatch. And thank you for watching.